As all of you know, that GCP is an international ethical and scientific quality standard for the design, conduct, recording, and reporting of clinical trials. All investigators and staff who are involved in the conduct of any clinical trials are required to complete training in good clinical practice and refresh this training regularly to update the knowledge. This is even more pertinent given the many changes and amendments in the clinical trial and new drug approval rules and regulations in India in recent years. We are having total 8 topics in this 1 month workshop, starting from overview of Indian GCP to silent features of NDCT 2019. World is celebrating International Women Day on 8th March on every year and support the woman empowerment. So, in line with that, NPT also would like to give chance to all women who are stalwarts in their respective topics to act as a resource person. Hence, we hope that this would be a great experience for all of our dear participants. Now, I request organizing chairperson of the workshop, Dr. Nitya Gokte Madam, to address the gathering. Over to Nitya Gokte Madam.
Thank you, Dr. Ganesh Dakle. Good afternoon, everybody. It's indeed a privilege for me to have been the organizing chairperson of this GCP workshop. I'd just like to make 3 or 4 points. I was a young lecturer in 1996 when GCP came for the first time, or at least I was introduced to GCP for the first time. And I have sort of grown up with GCP since 1996 until today. And I am not in any way perfect. I've made a lot of mistakes in research along my research career and my research journey. I think the first take-home message that I would like to give all of you is that each one of us makes mistakes. It's important that we learn from these mistakes, and it's important not to repeat old mistakes, but rather make new ones and then learn from the new ones and go forward. The second point that I'd like to make is often when we think of GCP, we're only thinking about regulatory studies. We are thinking about the pharmaceutical industry. It's important to remember that GCP is applicable not just to regulatory studies, but as important, or if not more important, for the thesis that you do, for the academic studies that you do. So GCP is for all studies. It's not just for the regulatory studies or the pharmaceutical industry funded studies. The third point that I'd like to make about GCP, it's good clinical practice or good clinical research practice, GCRP if you'd like it. It should be a way of life for everybody. It's in what you do, how you write, how you document. If you're ethical, if you work with integrity in every aspect of your life, and not just medicine, you're automatically following GCP or GCRP. And I'd like to wish finally everybody, the men and the women, a very happy Women's Day. That's tomorrow. And I wish all of you who are attending this workshop very good learning in the next 4 weeks to come, and all good wishes to everybody. And my regards to all the seniors who've put this workshop together, and all the very best. Over to the organizing committee.
Thank you, madam, for your valuable guidance and for accepting our invitation to act as organizing chairperson for this national workshop. Now I request NPT President Dr. R.K. Dixit sir to guide the participants.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Dr. Ganesh. It's really an immense pleasure to have such a huge online workshop, which is one of its own kind. And the effort by Dr. Ganesh Dakle and Dr. Kamal, now that has actually given the shape, and they found out the most efficient faculty throughout the country under the most efficient leadership of Madam Nitya Gotke, and all these faculty who are involved, and they are stalwart in their field, and they will be delivering their talk, and they will have a discussion on GCP. And GCP is such a crucial thing that every person, every resident, every researcher, every teacher, every faculty has to go with the GCP training, and this GCP training is one of the mandatory requirement for going any type of clinical trial or in any type of clinical studies. So my best wishes are with the workshop, and I wish that the workshop will be a mega hit, and this will create a new type of learning environment throughout the country among all us. Best wishes. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dikshit sir, for your valuable inputs. Our NPT coordinator, Dr. Kamal sir, is always ready with the innovative ideas and doing the association work 24/7 for the success of NPT. Thank you, sir, for your hard work. Now I request sir to release the video of the workshop. Over to Dr. Kamal sir. Dr. Kamal sir. Dr. Kamal sir, are you there? Hello.
Am I audible, sir? Am I audible, sir?
Yes, yes, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Please start the video from your device. Thank
Okay.
you.
Hello friends, good afternoon to all. President of the National Association of Pharmacology and Therapeutics, Dr. R.K. Dikshit, National Coordinator Dr. Kamal, Organizing Chairperson of the workshop Dr. Nithya Gopte, and the Organizing Secretary Dr. Ganesh Dakle. It gives me great immense pleasure to act as a patron for this very important online GCP workshop of national importance. Recently, ICMR and DCGI have developed new guidelines and rules for the conduct of biomedical research after a long and careful deliberations with experts and stakeholders to prepare the document in line with the national and international guidelines. It is essential for all stakeholders to be aware of these guidelines, which would help to improve biomedical research and conduct research in a proper scientific manner, considering the ethical issues. I know this course is suitable for individuals both from the industry and academia who are involved in clinical trial and new drug development in India. I am happy that this National Association of Pharmacology and Therapeutics is organizing a national level online workshop in this month. This workshop is being organized in association with All India Institute of Medical Sciences, Nagpur. During this workshop, renowned women leaders and researchers are going to give deliberations and training on important topics of clinical research. Hence, I look forward to this workshop and hope it will achieve high quality of conduct of ethical health research by imparting a better protection to research participants while obtaining authentic data during clinical study. I wish all the best for this workshop. Thank you. Jai Hind.
This was the video message given by our Honorable Executive Director, Dr. Prashant P. Joshi, sir. Now we will go ahead with the promotional video of GCP workshop. Thank you, Dr. Kamal sir, for preparing the nice video. Today we are having two sessions. First is on overview of Indian GCP, and second is on responsibilities of investigators, sponsors, and monitors. First session will be moderated by Dr. Jacob Jesuran sir. Sir is presently working as Deputy Director, Delivered Church Medical College, Tiruvalla, Kerala. Sir is also Dean, Student Welfare of the college, as well as Professor and Head of the Department of Pharmacology. Sir is also Chief Warden of the hostel and member of the Anti-Ragging Committee. Along with that, Sir is also Coordinator of the Medical Education Unit. Sir is also having several national and international publications. I welcome you, Dr. Jacob sir, for today's workshop. The second session will be moderated by Dr. Avinash Turankar sir. Sir is presently working as Professor, Department of Pharmacology, Government Medical College, Nagpur. Sir is having more than 50 publications in Index Journal, and he is also the author of the book entitled as Rules of Memory. Sir has done 3 certificate courses, mainly diabetes mellitus, cardiac drug, and hypertension. Sir's areas of research are diabetes, effect on psychomotor performance of various drugs, therapeutic drug monitoring, and SWOT analysis. Sir is also faculty for medical education technology in GMC Nagpur, and he was in the core organizing committee of Platinum Jubilee celebration of Government Medical College Nagpur 2023. We also welcome Dr. Turankar sir. Now I request Dr. Jacob sir to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Munalini Kaidkar madam. First session will be of 20 minutes, followed by question answer session, and participants can put their questions in the chat box, and moderator will take it once the session is over. Over to Dr. Jacob Jesuran sir. Are you there, sir? Jacob sir? So Dr. Munalini Kaidkar is presently working as Associate Professor, Department of Pharmacology, Government Medical College. Sir has raised the hand, I think. Shilpa madam, you can allow the sir. Okay, I will introduce the Kaidkar madam.
The opportunity. Today's esteemed speaker is Dr. Mrilanli Kalikar, madam. She's the Associate Professor of Pharmacology at GMC Nagpur, and she's a member secretary of IEC GMC Nagpur and member of other ethics committees in Nagpur, member of Subject Expert Committee of DCGI, life member of FERCI and ISCR, trained by NABH on GCP and NDCT, received Hall of Fame Award for contribution to Ethics Council of ISCR in 2022 and 2024. With 55 publications in national and international journals, ma'am is an erudite scholar, and it's a great privilege to have her as a speaker for this session. So, ma'am, we welcome you and we hand over the session to you. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir, for the nice introduction. And just give me 1 minute, I will be sharing my slides. So my slides are visible, and am I audible?
Yes, madam.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
So a very good afternoon to all of you. And at the outset, I would like to thank the National Association of Pharmacology and Therapeutics and the organizing committee for this wonderful opportunity. I'm talking on the overview of Indian and ICH GCP. GCP stands for Good Clinical Practice. So these are the headings under which the topic will be covered in next 20 to 25 minutes. Historical background of good clinical practice, why GCP, what is GCP, various principles of GCP, and the different GCP guidelines that we have. So first, coming to the historical background of GCP. So whenever we talk of good clinical practice guidelines, we definitely remember the historical background of development of this guideline. And it is very important to know the historical background, because this in itself explains us the reason and need for the development of GCP guidelines. Historically, there have been a number of disasters like the sulfanilamide disaster in 1937, the thalidomide disaster in 1960, that has raised the question of safety. And these discussions ultimately led to the development of regulations and guidelines that has evolved into code of practice. Nazi medical experiments during World War II, you all might be aware of this. These Nazi medical experiments are considered as the landmark in the development of research ethics. And Nazi medical experiments, these were the series of experiments that were carried out by the Nazi physicians on the concentration camp inmates or prisoners. And these experiments were very inhuman experiments where the prisoners have to undergo extreme pain and suffering. And the prisoners were not aware that they are the part of experiment, that is, informed consent was not there. So these are some of the examples of the Nazi experiments, cold water submersion experiment. So finally, what happened after World War II? After World War II, these physicians were tried and convicted by a special tribunal at Nuremberg in Germany, and the basis of this judgment came to be known as Nuremberg Code. Formulated in 1947, it is considered as the landmark document in medical research and ethics. There are several points given in the Nuremberg Code, but it has emphasized more on voluntariness and informed consent. That is, informed consent is essential. You have to take written informed consent from all the participants, and it should be voluntary. After this came the Capiver-Harris Amendment in 1962, following the thalidomide disaster, where 10,000 infants were born in over 20 countries worldwide with fetal limb deformities. And in response to this, the Capiver-Harris Amendment were passed, which required the FDA to evaluate all new drugs for safety and efficacy. So it is also known as the Drug Efficacy Amendment, and it was an amendment to the Federal Food, Drug and Cosmetic Act. After this, we had the Declaration of Helsinki in 1964, which was developed by the World Medical Assembly, and it has undergone revision several times. It is a very important document for us and therefore considered as a cornerstone document of human research ethics. If you have seen, it is included with all the clinical trial protocols. And it is important because it forms the basis for the ethical principles that underlie the ICH GCP guideline. ICH GCP is one of the GCP guideline ICH stands for International Council on Harmonization. So it has, this declaration of Helsinki has given several recommendations, and one of the most important is that it says that there should be a review of a proposed research by independent ethics committee. Medical research involving human subjects should be conducted by scientifically qualified person under the supervision of clinical competent medical person. Physicians to obtain subjects of freely given informed consent, preferably in writing, and it has also stressed on publication of results, negative or positive. Then the Tuskegee syphilis study, again a very long duration study. It was carried out from 1932 to 1972, and it was to study the natural progression of syphilis in African American men. The most unethical part of this study was that the patients with syphilis were denied treatment even after penicillin was in use. And what happened when the study was exposed? There were 28 cases of deaths, 100 cases of disability, and 19 cases of congenital syphilis. So many examples we have seen. So what do we learn from all of these studies? There was a lack of informed consent. Subjects and families were put to risk. Exploitation of vulnerable population, deception, withholding information with no benefits to the subject. So following the Tuskegee syphilis study, the Belmont report was published in 1979, which has laid down 3 basic principles of research. And these principles we have to follow when we are doing any type of research. These are autonomy, justice, and beneficence. So it won't be wrong if we say that only tragedy has been the mother of ethical guidelines or regulations worldwide. Following the Nazi experiments, we had the Nuremberg Code, which was the first landmark document in research ethics. Following the thalidomide disaster, we had the Caffever-Harris Amendment. And after the Tuskegee syphilis study, we had the Belmont report. So foundation of GCP is reactive to tragedies. Now, what is GCP, good clinical practice? It is actually a misnomer, and it has nothing to do with clinical practice. It is actually good clinical research practice. It is an international ethical and scientific quality standard for the design, conduct, performance, monitoring, auditing, recording, analysis, and reporting of clinical trials. So any activity you are doing in research or clinical trial, you have to follow, you have to be compliant with a certain standard, which is an internationally accepted standard, and this is called as good clinical practice. So why good clinical practice? It is because if we are compliant with the good clinical practice guidelines, it ensures us that the clinical research is consistently performed to highest ethical and scientific standard, and it also assures us about the right safety and well-being of the trial participants, as well as the data quality and integrity. So these are the 2 tenets of GCP. Right, safety and well-being of the trial participants are well protected, and the data that is resulting from the research, they are complete, accurate, and credible. So this is how the guidelines have been evolved. As I've already told you, 1996, we have one GCP guideline, which is internationally accepted. That is International Council on Harmonization Guideline. And 2001, we have our own Indian GCP guideline. So coming to the principles of good clinical practice, there are 13 principles which are mentioned in the International Council on Harmonization GCP guideline. Okay. So let us see one by one. The first principle is about the ethics GCP and regulatory requirement, which says that a clinical trials should be conducted in accordance with the ethical principles that have origin in the Declaration of Helsinki and which are consistent with the GCP and applicable regulatory requirements. Second principle, which is talking about the benefit and risk ratio, it says that before we start any type of research, the benefit and risk ratio should be seen, and the trial should be initiated and continued only if there is a favorable benefit risk ratio. The third principle, it says that the right safety and well-being of the trial participants, it is of the most important consideration, and therefore it should prevail over the interest of science and society. Fourth principle is about the adequacy of previous data. the available non-clinical and clinical information on an investigational product should be adequate to support the proposed clinical trial. The fifth principle, which says that clinical trial should be scientifically sound and described in a clear, detailed protocol. According to the sixth principle, a trial should be conducted in compliance with the protocol that has received prior institutional review board or ethics committee approval or favorable opinion. So it is about talking about the independent review by the ethics committee. According to the seventh principle, the medical care given to and medical decisions made on behalf of the subjects should always be the responsibility of a qualified physician. The eighth principle is about the education, training, and experience of the staff who is involved in research. So according to this, each individual involved in conducting the trial should be qualified by education, experience, and training to perform his or her respective task. Requirement for informed consent, which is the principle number 9. It says that the freely given informed consent should be obtained from every subject prior to clinical trial participation. The 10th principle, fidelity of record and documentation. All clinical trial information should be recorded, handled, and stored in a way that allows its accurate reporting, interpretation, as well as verification. 11th principle, we all know the importance of privacy and confidentiality of the trial subjects. It says that the confidentiality of records that could identify the subjects should be protected, respecting the privacy and confidentiality rules in accordance with the applicable regulatory requirement. 12th is about the investigational product, integrity of the investigational product or IP. Investigational product should be manufactured, handled, and stored in accordance with good manufacturing practice, that is GMP, and they should be used in accordance with the approved protocol. Last 13 is about the quality assurance and quality control systems with procedure that assure the quality of every aspect of the trial should be implemented. So these are the 13 principles of ICH GCP. Moving ahead, let us see some definitions. Investigator. So who is an investigator? You all know it is a person who is responsible for the conduct of the clinical trial at the trial site. And if the trial is conducted by the team of the individual, the investigator is the responsible leader of the team and he may be called the principal investigator. Sponsor. Who is a sponsor? Sponsor can be anyone. He can be an individual, company, institution, or organization which takes the responsibility for the initiation, management, and or financing of a clinical trial. What is a clinical trial? Clinical trial is a systematic study of new drug in human subject to generate data for discovering and or verifying clinical, pharmacological, and or adverse effects with the objective of determining the safety and or efficacy of the new drug. And institutional review board or the ethics committees, it is an independent body which is constituted of medical, scientific, and non-scientific members whose responsibility is to ensure the protection of the right, safety, and well-being of the human subject. So this is the primary responsibility. But among other things, it also reviews, approves, provides continuous review of the protocol and amendments, as well as the method and material used in obtaining and documenting the informed consent of the trial subjects. So whenever we are talking of GCP, there are three important key players: the ethics committee, sponsor, as well as the investigator. Now, coming to the guidelines, GCP Good Clinical Practice Guidelines, we have WHO GCP, that is World Health Organization Good Clinical Practice Guideline. We have CDSCO GCP, that is Indian GCP by the Central Drug Standard Control Organization, and we have ICH GCP, that is International Council on Harmonization GCP guidelines. So let us see in brief about these guidelines. So WHO GCP guideline is Handbook for Good Clinical Research Practice. Started developing this in 1960, And this GCP guideline, it provided the basis for ICH GCP as an international guideline, which was published in 1996. The WHO GCP guideline and ICH GCP were more or less written in parallel and by some of the same experts, so they are basically similar. So this is how it looks content-wise. It has 14 principles as compared to 13 principles which are there in the ICH GCP. The second guideline, that is which is internationally accepted, International Council on Harmonization Good Clinical Practice Guideline. So it was published in 1996, and the E6R2, which we will be seeing it, was revised in 2016. So ICH GCP guideline, it is International Council on Harmonization Technical Requirements for Registration of Pharmaceutical for Human Use. These guidelines provided a unified standard to Europe, US, and Japan to facilitate mutual acceptance of clinical data. So what was the need to harmonize? And so it was to rationalize and harmonize the regulations in order to decrease the country-to-country differences in the guidelines and also the differences between the regulatory authorities, so as to streamline the drug development and regulatory process, as well as to increase the efficiency of clinical research and enforcement of GCP guideline. So this guideline has 4 topics. ICH has 4 topics. These are quality, safety, efficacy, and multidisciplinary, QSEM. Quality topic mainly deals with the pharmaceutical and chemical quality of the investigational product. The safety topic mainly deals with the preclinical studies, the carcinogenicity, genotoxicity, in vivo, in vitro study. And the efficacy guideline, which is very important for us as researchers or as ethics committees members, investigator, it is the efficacy guideline. And why is it so? Because the subtopic E6, there are several subtopics in the efficacy guideline. And amongst these, the 6th number is GCP guideline. So we have 6th number efficacy guideline, good clinical practice guideline, which was published in 96 and revised in 2016. And therefore, we say ICH GCP E6R2. So E6R2 basically stands for the GCP guideline. The last one topic is multidisciplinary, which the topics which are not included in the quality, safety, efficacy, and which deals with the MedDRA and electronic standards, etc., are included in this. So you can see these are the efficacy topic. I'm again emphasizing E6 is very important for us because it has the GCP guideline. So E for efficacy, guideline number 6. E6 for good clinical practice and international ethical and scientific quality standard for designing, conducting, recording, reporting of trials that involve the participation of human subjects. So this is the structure of the ICH E6. There are 8 sections, glossaries there where definitions have, the different definitions have been mentioned, principles which we have already seen. Section 3, 4, and 5, they have mentioned responsibilities of various stakeholders like the ethics committee, investigator, sponsor, and then they have touched the concept of the clinical trial protocol, investigator's brochure, and essential document. Now coming to the Indian GCP guideline, which was by the Central Drug Standard Control Organization, published in 2001. It has not been revised till date after 2001. So this guideline have been evolved with consideration with the WHO, ICH, and the ICMR guidelines, and it is to be followed for carrying out all research in India at all stages of drug development, whether prior or subsequent to product registration in India. So there are, this is the structure of the Indian GCP. There are 7 sections are there, and it has 5 appendices. So structure-wise, the guidelines are different, but content-wise, all the 3 guidelines are almost similar. Now let us see some other concepts which are mentioned in all the GCP guideline. Protocol. What is a protocol? Okay. A protocol is a document that describes the objective design, methodology, statistical consideration, and organization of a trial. The protocol usually also gives the background and rationale for the trial. So these are the contents of the protocol. The first section is about the general information, which mentions the title of the study, then the name of the investigator, contact number, the sponsor, the contact number, etc. Then we have very other important section, that is the background information, which mentions the summary of findings from non-clinical studies and from clinical trials that are relevant to the trial, summary of the known and potential risk benefit, a justification for the dose, route of administration, a statement that the trial will be conducted in compliance with the protocol, GCP, and applicable regulatory requirement, description of the population to be studied, references to literature, the objectives of the trial, what is the purpose of the trial, the design, like what is the type of the study, the endpoints, randomization, storage data, accountability, stopping rules, dose regimen, etc. It also tells us about the selection criteria, inclusion, exclusion criteria, withdrawal criteria of the participants, treatment of the participants, assessment of the safety efficacy parameters, statistics, direct access to source documents, quality control, quality assurance, ethics, data handling, financing, insurance, and publication policy. So all these things are mentioned in the protocol. Another very important concept which we as researchers which we all should know is the investigator's brochure, and it is abbreviated as IB. What is it? It is the compilation of clinical and non-clinical data on the investigational product that are relevant to the study of the product in human subject. So generally the sponsor is responsible for ensuring that the up-to-date IB is made available to the investigator, and then the investigator is responsible for providing this IB to the ethics committee. The main purpose of this document is to make aware the investigator about the relevant information regarding the investigational product. The IB should be reviewed at least annually and revised as necessary in compliance with the sponsor's written procedure, and usually a medically qualified person participate in the editing of the IB. The overall aim of this section is to provide the investigator with a clear understanding of the possible risk, the adverse reaction, specific test, observation, precautions that may be needed for a clinical trial, recognition and treatment of possible overdose and the adverse drug reaction. So these are the contents of the IB. There's a title page which mentions the generic name, the chemical name of the investigational product, and the sponsor's detail. Then there's a confidentiality statement. Then the contents of the IB, where a table of content is there, followed by summary, introduction, then the physical chemical characteristics of the formulation, information regarding the non-clinical studies. What were the findings in the non-clinical studies, the toxicological studies, effects in humans, the pharmacokinetic bioavailability studies in humans, safety, marketing experience. All the information is there, and it also has a summary of data and guidance for the investigator. So, source definition. So this is also a very important concept, source data and source definition. What are source documents? Source documents are the original documents or records which are storing data collected during the clinical trial. So source document can be anything like lab reports or hospital records, etc. And the data which is stored in the source document is called as the source data. And it is necessary for the reconstruction and evaluation of the trial. Source data verification is the process of taking the CRFs for accuracy against the data recorded in the source documents. And ICH requires monitors to have a direct access to all the source documents. So these are some of the source documents, which are the original documents, like records are there, lab reports are there, X-ray, CT scans. All this can be called as source documents. Coming to the last part of the presentation, essential documents for the conduct of the clinical trial. Now, what are essential documents and why are they called as essential? Essential documents are those which individually and collectively permit evaluation of the conduct of the trial and quality of the data produced. They are grouped into three according to the stage of the trial during which they will be normally generated. So these are before the clinical trial commences, during the trial, and after the trial. What is the purpose of this? Essential documents, filing essential documents assist in the successful management of the trial by investigator, sponsor, and monitor. And these are the ones which are audited by the regulatory authorities as well as the sponsors, auditors to confirm the validity of the trial's conduct and the integrity of the data collected. So this is just a list of the essential documents before the trial, not limited to, it may vary from trial to trial. It is mentioned in the ICGCP guideline. So this is the list before the trial, during the trial, and this is after the trial. Finally, coming to the take-home message, as healthcare practitioners, we want only safe and effective treatment for our patients, researchers also, and adhering to GCP is in the best interest of our patient and best way to ensure this in any type of research. If we have not done so already, we begin learning GCP today. Thank you. So I think I've completed in time. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for that extremely lucid session. It was very well explanatory, and it touched on different aspects of GCP, the three different documents, and very nicely you portrayed the various aspects of good clinical research practice. Thank you so much, ma'am. We will take a few questions right now.
Yes, sir.
In the chat box, there are no questions. I think so.
Yes,
So
sir.
if somebody wants,
questions. Yes.
if somebody wants the question directly, they can go ahead. Madam, you have talked about Indian GCP. Recently, according to 2000 NDCT rule, new 2019, they have removed the Schedule Y.
Yes.
What is about Indian GCP?
Sir, one of the appendix of Indian GCP is Schedule Y. Since Indian GCP has not been revised, it is still there. Although Schedule Y is not in existence and has been replaced by the NDCT 2019, Schedule Y is still there in the Indian GCP as it is not revised. But it is not governing the clinical trial. It is the NDCT 2019, which regulates the import, manufacture, and other things. Other activities related to clinical trial in India.
Okay. One question is in chat box. How GCP practice can be applied to surgery residents? This is a vague question, but if it is
Yes.
possible for you.
Yes, sir. So a good clinical practice guideline, not only surgery residents, it is applicable to all the residents whosoever is doing research. And as Gokte madam has already told that it is not only about clinical trials, it is any research. So residents are doing their dissertation work. So this is applicable to any type of research, dissertation work or academic research, whatever we are doing, we should apply this GCP guidelines. The guidelines has laid down various principles. They have given us the ethical principles. So this should be followed in a proper way and we should be compliant because this ensures us of the right safety and well-being of our participants and the way the data is generated from the trial or any type of research. So that is why we should be compliant and it should be followed. So everyone should go through these guidelines and should follow this.
Okay.
So it is applicable to everyone. Any
Yes.
type of research we are doing, it is applicable to it.
Madam, there is one question which asks whether the GCP training is mandatory for all faculty, and another question which asks whether GCP training is mandatory for all postgraduates involved in clinical research. So what is your expert opinion?
Yes, sir. Sir, as far as the postgraduates are concerned, as per the new CBME, PGMER 2023, they have made it mandatory for the postgraduate students. So basically those who are GR1s at present, it is mandatory for them as per the GMER 2023. Faculty, EC members, researchers, yes, it is mandatory for them to undergo training. All the ethics committees, they are, whenever the research is being submitted to the ethics committees, we definitely as ethics committee members, everyone should look for the GCP certificates, because it gives us the idea how competent, how knowledgeable the investigator is regarding the various guidelines. And it is very essential for the ethics committee to be confirmed that the researcher is compliant with the good clinical practice guidelines. Therefore, I think, yes, it is mandatory. Anyone who is doing research should undergo this training. It is, of course, as per the NDCT, it has been made mandatory for the ethics committee members and the researchers. Clinical trial, no doubt about it. Everyone should undergo this training.
Should we follow WHO or GCP guidelines? That is another question which has been asked. You
We can
did
follow
tell us
it.
that both
Sir,
are
this
almost.
could be last question. Huh?
Yes.
This
Sir,
will be last question.
GCP guidelines, as I've already told, structure-wise they are different, content-wise they are almost the same. We can follow any guideline. ICH GCP is internationally accepted. In India, since we are living in India, it is mandatory for us to follow the Indian GCP guideline. So, principle-wise, we can follow any one of the guideline for research. In India, of definitely Indian GCP, and ICH is an internationally accepted quality standard.
Thank you, madam.
Okay, we can go ahead with the
Thank
second.
you all. Thank you.
Second topic is responsibilities of principal investigator, sponsor, and monitor. So now I request Dr. Turankar sir to introduce today's second speaker, Dr. Rima Shah madam. Over to
Am I audible, sir?
Avinash sir. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. Allow me to introduce today's next speaker, Dr. Rima Shah. She's presently working as Associate Professor and Head of the Department of Pharmacology, AIIMS Rajkot. She has recently procured a patent for the new drug, Nintedanib. She is a member of the editorial board of the journal, Drugs and Therapy Perspective. To her credit, there are 62 articles in various international and national journals. She has worked as a member secretary of Institutional Ethics Committee at GMERS Medical College, Gandhinagar. And she is a proud member of the Subject Expert Committee of DCGI Delhi. And she's also the life member of NPD, IMA, and IPS. Dr. Rima would be talking on responsibilities of investigators, sponsor, and monitors. That's a very important topic. So far, Dr. Mrinalini has covered various aspects of overviews of good clinical practice, including the history, guidelines, principles, protocol, and the information about investigation brochure as well. And she has also talked about various key players in these GCP, like sponsor, investigators, and monitors. So Dr. Rima will be talking on these the roles, responsibilities, and duties of these key players, and there will be a primary focus on the role of the investigators. There may be many new participants and in this particular workshop who are new to this all concept. You can take down the notes, write down your questions, put them in the chat box. We will go through those questions and select out some few questions at the end of the session. And if there are more number of questions, we'll be addressing those questions in the GCP 2024 group, WhatsApp group that we have specifically created for this purpose. That's all from my side. Over to you, Dr. Rima Shah, for the further presentations.
Thank you so much, sir, for the nice introduction. First of all, I would like to thank the National Association of Pharmacology and Therapeutics for giving me this opportunity, as well as thank you to whole organizing team for providing me this opportunity to interact with a huge crowd on such an interesting topic of GCP. Now I will be sharing my screen. So today's my topic is roles and responsibilities of investigator, sponsor, and monitor. A very good afternoon to all of you present here. Let's start with the session. As you have learned in the earlier session that clinical research is a collaborative relationship, and for research to be very good, you need a good clinical scientific design, good statistical design, sound and ethical conduct of the research is important, as well as throughout the study, integrity and quality should be maintained. Then only you can achieve the goal of good clinical practices. And as Sir has mentioned, there are various key players in this clinical research or trial, like sponsor, investigator, regulatory authorities, ethics committee, contract research organization, and patients. And it is very essential to understand roles and responsibilities of all this together. From all of this, I will be focusing on roles and responsibilities of the investigator, sponsor, and monitor today. And as earlier speaker ma'am has described, basis for these roles and responsibilities has been laid down in various guidelines like Indian GCP guideline, ICH GCP guideline, and finally we are following new drug and clinical trial rule which is released in year 2019. So let us start with the investigator. Who is investigator? Investigator is a person who is responsible for the conduct of clinical trial at a trial site in accordance with a good clinical practices. And when it is a multi-center trial, which is conducted by a team of investigators at different sites, the principal investigator is the one who is responsible for leading the whole team and whom all other site investigators will report. Investigator can choose a team which include principal investigator. Some can be co-investigator, any individual who can be co-investigator, any individual member of the clinical trial team who is designated and supervised by the investigator to perform clinical trial related procedures, including trial related decisions. And this person can be sub-investigator or co-investigator. PI can choose a project coordinator or study coordinator. He is also a person who is designated by the investigator for their specific skills. Their duties and responsibilities depend on their individual qualification, and it should be assigned and documented by the investigator. Project coordinator can be a nurse or research assistant or any other qualified fellow of the research team. So let's focus on roles and responsibilities. First is investigator's qualification and agreement. As discussed in the previous session also, PI should be qualified enough by education, training, and experience. He should have required medical license to practice in that country. CV should be updated, and he should have specialized training, including GCP training, to become PI. It is very essential that all principal investigator of clinical research should be GCP trained. They should be thoroughly familiar with the appropriate use of the investigational product and investigation brochure. They should be aware and comply with the GCP as well as other regulatory requirements laid down by the country. They should permit monitoring visits and auditing it, log of the designation of different duties to different qualified person. This is just one example of showing how the authority log is prepared. It is usually prepared with name of the individual, which role is assigned to them in the clinical trial, which is signed by the principal investigator as well as the coordinator who is taking up that duty along with the time frame. They all should be written and signed by all of them. Then next duty is adequate resources. PI should be able to demonstrate a potential for recruiting the required number of suitable subjects within an agreed recruitment period, which is based on the retrospective data. So, like patient, if your clinical OPD is having 100 patients, you can easily enroll 10 patients per day if the study is required. Likewise, based on the retrospective data, you can ensure that you will be able to recruit the required number of patients in required time frame. PI should be having sufficient time to devote to a project to be completed in accordance with the GCP guideline in agreed time frame. They should have adequate number of qualified staff as well as adequate facilities to conduct the trial properly and safely, and ensure that all persons assisting with the trial are adequately informed about the protocol, investigational products, their trial-related duties and function. All should be well aware about every duty they have to perform. Then comes the medical care of trial participant. PI have to ensure that all the medical care which is given to the participant and all the medical decisions taken for them are always taken by the qualified physician or dentist, as the case may be. Adequate care is also provided for all the participants for adverse drug reaction if they occur during the clinical trial, including the laboratory investigation related values. During the trial, if they are altered, the required treatment should be given. Moreover, PI should advise the patients regarding medical care whenever needed for intercurrent illness. Suppose a patient is enrolled into the trial and he or she develops common cold. What to take as a treatment, that should also be advised by the primary investigator. And if patient permits, inform the participant's primary physician about his or her participation in the trial. It is said into the GCP guideline that participant can withdraw at any time from the study. And it is the duty of the PI to ascertain the reasons for withdrawn from the participant. PI should try to identify what are the reasons because of which individual is wanting to withdraw from the study. That is also role of PI. Next is communication with the ethics committee. PI should provide latest copies of investigational brochure to the IEC, should provide all the documents for review like detailed protocol, informed consent document, all the required document which is laid down by the IEC requirement, they should be submitted to IEC by PI and obtain a written favorable approval letter from the IEC before initiation of the study. You should enroll patients only after obtaining approval from the ethics committee. And even after initiation of the study, IEC should be kept appraised about the event and progress time to time as per the requirement laid down by that IEC. Third, next duty is compliance with the protocol. PI should conduct the whole study in accordance with the protocol, and he should not deviate from the protocol unless it is advised by the sponsor or IEC. Sometimes the situation happens that patient is at immediate hazard or risk, and in such serious situation, PI may deviate from the protocol, but such deviation should be informed immediately to IEC, sponsor, and all the regulatory authorities in the required time frame. And document of this deviation should be attached along with the protocols. Then comes the handling of investigational product. This role can be assigned to a pharmacist or trained individual who maintain the accountability of the drugs or investigational products at the study site. They document all the product received, its use at disposition, and finally they are used according to the GCP. Maintain the product in the secure area. Storing of the product should be as per the specified requirement like temperature, humidity, all should be maintained as required by the sponsor or regulatory authorities, and make sure that the product is used only in accordance with the protocol, and disallow use of such investigational product by anyone who is not registered with the study. Next role is regarding randomization procedure and unmasking. PI should follow the study randomization procedure thoroughly and unmask only in accordance with the protocol. And if in emergency situation, you have to unmask, then document for non-compliance or premature unmasking should be there along with the protocol. Then is to inform the, obtain the informed consent from the all trial participant. It is the duty of the principal investigator to inform participant or their legal representative about risk and benefit associated with the investigational product in their local language, without any influence or coercion, and without affecting the subject's legal right. Written informed consent should be obtained from all participants before enrolling them into the study. And As the study progresses and if any new information is coming regarding the investigational product, that should also be informed to the participant. There will be a different session on informed consent process. So I am not going into very much detail of how informed consent is to be taken, but it is the role of the PI to obtain the consent. Then record and report. It is a dictum that for data recording, if it is not documented, it is not done. For easy remembering, we have prepared one mnemonic that your data must be allokic, which means attributable, legible, original, contemporaneous, accurate, and complete. Attributable means who has recorded it and when, who has changed it, the record, when it is changed and why it is changed. Handwriting should be readable. It should be original, not the photocopies. Like all the original report, ECG, everything should be original. Results should be recorded as they are observed, not rounding off the figure or anything like that. Whatever is observed should be recorded accurately with signature and date who records it. Data should be accurate and should be double checked for any unintentional errors, and it should be adequate and complete. Ideally, no information should be missing from CRF. So your data should be complete. All the CRF should be checked, filled, corrected, signed, and dated. Maintain all the trial-related documents. There is a financial contract also between the investigator as well and the sponsor, which deals with all the financial responsibilities they share, and that should also be kept along with the PI. And PI should give access of this record to monitors, regulatory agency officers, or auditors for the required regulatory approvals. They should submit the progress report periodically to the IEC as per the requirement. However, source data remains with the investigator. Now you must be aware about what is source data from the previous speaker. Ma'am has explained well, and that all data remains with the investigator. Arrangement of the archiving of the all trial related documents is also duty of PI. They should establish and maintain the subject enrollment log, and all source data and everything in original should be kept with PI for next 2 years of the last approval for the marketing. Or sponsor gives the instruction, now the data is not required, and at that time you can dispose of the data. But without information to sponsor, you should not discard any data related to clinical trial. Now, next role is preparing the progress report. Written periodic status of the report and update of the study should be informed to IEC, sponsor, and regulatory authorities. Reports of protocol deviation, reports of all the adverse drug reaction should be submitted to IEC. Report regarding study suspension or termination should be submitted to sponsor or IEC. And finally, to prepare a final study report and submit it to IEC, sponsor, and regulatory authorities. Most important role as a physician is to also safety reporting. We should report all the adverse drug reaction which are occurring during the clinical trial. May it be very mild headache to the very severe anaphylactic reaction, but all adverse drug reactions should be reported, and ensure that adequate medical care is provided to the participant for all these adverse reactions. There are guidelines for reporting serious adverse drug reaction. All the serious adverse drug reaction should be informed to sponsor and IEC immediately, that is within 24 hours of its occurrence, as the feasible or as appropriate. But after once intimated, detailed causality assessment should be prepared by PI, and it should be submitted with detailed report to the sponsor, IEC, and regulatory authorities within 14 days of its occurrence. Death should also be reported as per the requirement and inform the nominee of the patient. It is also role of the PI that nominee of the patient should be informed about contact number of the sponsor or their representative for making claims in the cases of trial-related injuries or death. Next is premature termination of trial. If for any reason trial is prematurely terminated, then PI should inform the subjects, should ensure the therapy further and follow-up of the patient, and inform the regulatory authorities, sponsor, and IEC with explanation why the trial is terminated. Finally, at the end of the study, final report should be prepared by the PI, and it should be informed to institution where the trial is conducted, IEC, regulatory authorities, with the summary of the trial outcome. Now, this was all about roles and responsibilities of the PI into single center study. Now, what are the roles and responsibilities into multi-center research? Multi-center research, there is a terminology called as coordinating PI. Coordinating PI is the one who takes an overall responsibility of the conduct of a multi-center research along with the PI from all other participating center, and coordinate ongoing communication between designated ethics committee and PI of the participating centers. In general, the ethics committee of the coordinating PI becomes the designated ethics committee from where the main trial approval is obtained, and it is passed on to other sites, where also at every site you have to obtain the IEC approval, but the DEC approval will be your background letter. Principal investigator is the person here who will take responsibility of conduct of multi-center research at his or her own center only. So what are the responsibility in multi-center research? Coordinating PI will submit the study proposal and master protocol to designated EC, submit all requirement and all clearances will obtain from DEC. He functions as a link between DEC and PIs, submit all the previously mentioned documents like SAE, causality assessment, protocol deviation, problems, risk, complaints, everything should be submitted to DEC as mentioned in roles and responsibilities of PI. He should be communicating with the steering committee, monitoring committee, technical advisory committee, as well as sponsors, and communicate the concerns which are received from the one center to other center in cases of multiple centers. So to summarize, overall roles and responsibilities of the clinical trial can be divided into three. One is pre-study requirements or duties, which include update your CV, study the protocol in detail, understand the case record form, what data has to be reported, obtain IEC approval, check that your staff is trained, check for the available facilities and function, ensure you can enroll number of participants required by the study, prepare the study file which is provided by the sponsor, and establish the working relationship with the study monitor as well as sponsor. During the study, what you have to do is enroll the subject strictly in accordance with the protocol, return of informed consent should be obtained, data record and maintained according to the requirement, reporting of all the adverse event including SAE as per the requirement, be available for contact by subjects, study personnel or sponsor, and during the study you should be aware about the progress of the study. Post-study, ensure the data completion, archive all trial-related document, give opinion on efficacy and safety, inform ethics committee, sponsor, and other required agencies for completion of the trial, read and check the final reports, and make arrangement for further treatment for the patient and thank them. So this is all about roles and responsibilities, but most essential is it is PI's responsibility that he or she will apply GCP to the study. Understanding these roles and responsibility is key for protecting the subject's safety and maintaining the integrity of data. Monitoring and quality management can help ensure compliance with the GCP. So ultimately, it is PI's responsibility that study is conducted in accordance with the GCP. Now coming to sponsor. Who is a sponsor? Sponsor is an individual, company, institution, or organization that takes responsibility for the initiation, management, and or financing of the clinical trial. Sometimes sponsor and investigator are the same person. Then roles and responsibilities of the sponsor as well as investigator both are applicable to that person. So now I will be discussing briefly about roles and responsibilities of the sponsor. We can say that overall, quality management is the role of sponsor. Sponsor should implement a system to manage quality throughout all stages of clinical trial. Ensure that all aspects of clinical trial are operationally feasible, scientific, and without much complexities. Identify the critical processes during the protocol designing and protect the human subject safety and rights. which includes processes for risk identification, risk evaluation, risk minimization, risk control, risk communication, risk review, risk reporting, everything, which require a different session altogether. But all this quality management aspect is the main role of sponsor. And once the study is initiated, sponsors should prepare all the SOPs, which make sure that quality assurance and quality control is maintained throughout the conduct of the study. And he should provide SOPs to the PIs. Other is role of research organization. Sponsor may transfer any or all trial-related duty and functions to the clinical research organization, but ultimately, responsibility of the quality and integrity of the trial will remain with the sponsor. And there should be a written contract between the transfer of duties between the sponsor and CROs. All the functions and roles will be written clearly, and whatever is not written in that contract will be the responsibility of the sponsor. Sponsor will also make sure that all the treatment and trial-related decisions are taken by qualified physician and dentist. He should prepare a good scientific trial design, statistical analysis, protocol preparation, CRF preparation, format for final documents, and format of all study-related document will be given by the sponsor, and he will ensure that all the documents are designed in such a way that they fulfill GCP and all other regulatory requirements for that country. Other most important role is sponsor will select the trial site as well as he will select the principal investigators. He will allocate the responsibility at different sites and different PIs. He will be having a financial contribution to the trial. So there will be a financial contract which should be in the place, and one copy lies with the sponsor and one copy with the PI. He will be notifying and submitting to all the regulatory authorities. Before initiation of clinical trial, all the required approval from the central licensing authority to initiate a trial, they would be taken by sponsor. Sponsor should submit all the status report of the clinical trial to the central licensing authority at the prescribed periodicity based on the country where he or she is working. Of course, PI will take the IEC approval, but sponsor will make sure that IEC approval is obtained. Another very important role of sponsor is that he will deal with the trial management, data handling, and record keeping. All the hard and soft copy of the data in appropriate format, including electronic data, will be saved at the PI site with copy to sponsor. He will be developing one independent data monitoring committee. This data monitoring committee will be assessing the progress of the trial, and it will assess the safety data, and essential efficacy and safety endpoint will be evaluated, and they can help in sponsor by deciding whether the trial is worth continuing, it requires modification, or trial should be terminated. So all this kind of decision will be based on the report of the independent data monitoring committee, which is hired by the sponsor. So it is also role of the sponsor to provide the information on investigational product. All PI will be getting all the information on efficacy and safety, including animal studies and all previous research related information, and updated investigation brochure, which is provided by the sponsor. Manufacturing, packaging, labeling, coding, handling of the investigational product will also be done by sponsor. It is the main role of the sponsor is to maintain the supply chain with adequate storage condition to all the centers regarding use of investigational product. All adverse drug reaction and SAE will be reported by PI also, as well as it will be reported by sponsors. Like mentioned earlier, all mild to severe ADR should be reported. Safety report should be updated periodically. Any serious ADR should be reported immediately, and detailed causality analysis report should be submitted within 14 days. Like PI, that same regulation applies to sponsor also. Sponsor should additionally arrange for compensation in trial-related injuries and death. Compensation to the subjects and investigator should be provided by sponsor according to the approved protocol and in defined time frame also. Sponsor should have all records and report like audit report, non-compliance report, premature termination of trial, clinical trial, study reports. Finally, sponsor will also give access to all of this record to the appropriate authorities like monitors, auditors, IEC reviews, or central licensing authority inspections. And sponsor will appoint a monitor. Now we have understood that sponsor will be taking care of all these roles and responsibilities. But if these processes are carried out at different sites according to the protocol or not, according to the GCP or not, he will appoint a person called as monitor or trial monitor. So who is a clinical trial monitor? He is a person who acts as a main line of communication between the sponsor and PI. He will visit the trial site and prepare a monitoring report, and he will monitor that the trial is carried out in accordance with the GCP. He will check everything like qualified investigators are used or not, facilities are adequate or not, staff is available or not, investigational product is used according to the protocol or not. He will verify the consent document, all SOPs are followed or not. So ultimately, whatever has been described till now, starting from the investigator's responsibilities or sponsor's responsibility, they all will be verified ultimately by a clinical trial monitor during a clinical trial monitoring visit. So what is a monitoring visit? It is usually a surprise visit or majority of the time planned visit carried out by a monitor. He will make sure that PI or staff is available to answer the queries, documents are available for review, space is available for the duration of the visit, as well as time is scheduled so that one visit will take care of whole GCP compliance. There is a slight confusion between the term monitoring and auditing, so I would be describing the difference. Monitoring visit is usually carried out by as sponsor or study site, and it is a part of study conduct only, while auditing is a third-party evaluation or independent evaluation. Monitoring will be mainly focusing on the study conduct, while auditing will be understanding the study compliance. Monitoring will be ongoing process throughout the study, while auditing will be a one-time point or snapshot in time kind of event. Usually, approach for monitoring will be surveillance or partnering, while auditing is a systematic audit approach. Usually, auditing is carried out by regulatory authorities, while monitoring is carried out by sponsor or sometimes PI site staff only. So with this, I would like to conclude my session and with a quote by Goethe, which says that knowing is not enough, we must apply. Willingness is not enough, we must do. I hope you have understand the roles and responsibilities of PI, sponsor, and investigators. And if you have any queries, I would like to take up. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ima Madam, for the wonderful and comprehensive coverage of this particular topic. You have very well explained the roles and responsibilities of investigator in details, and then the sponsor and monitors as well. So it was a very detailed account of this particular topic, and definitely it is going to help the PG students and all whoever are attending this particular workshop. So while I'm going through this chat box, I've noted some questions which are common and they have been asked frequently. So one of the common question is in a typical PG and dissertation scenario, who is a principal investigator? Is it the PG student or the guide? That's the common query that they are asking.
In my opinion, the person who is designing the project and collecting the data and doing the analysis will be the principal investigator, and PG student in majority of the scenario is doing the same thing. So in dissertation, PG student should be principal investigator and guide should be a facilitator.
In that context, if guide is a facilitator, a guide is having a quality check, he is playing the role of the guide. Could we label guide as a sponsor then?
Yes. Definitely.
Okay. There are overlapping roles, but we can label them. They are doing the quality check and all.
Yes, sir.
Another set of questions that are coming up because in this particular workshop, there are a lot of participants from other departments as well. They have come up with the queries like if they are doing some research with diagnostic agents, some lab investigations, some kind of a surgical intervention. Does it also require this GCP compliance and all in that particular trial? Is it all these things applicable there? That is their query.
Yes, sir. GCP is not only limited to drug trial, but it will be covering all the data, surgical procedures, radiological investigation, hematological investigation. Even, sir, nowadays, according to the latest guideline, even questionnaire-based studies are under GCP. You are using someone's time, someone's data, someone's property. And if you are dealing with any human data or humans as such as a patient, participant, or a surgical procedure, then on everything, GCP is applicable.
All right. One more question from my side for the benefit of the audience. If there is some kind of a study or trial in which the Ayurvedic drugs or herbal drugs are involved, you want to investigate that. Are there any specific precautions or the care that should be taken while designing this particular protocol of study?
I would say that, sir, for designing a studies which involve Ayurvedic preparation, first of all, one of the Ayurvedic consultants should be part of the team because investigators should be qualified enough. We have not learned Ayurvedic products. So one Ayurvedic person should be a part of a study who can guide on the use of Ayurvedic product. All the other steps can be done according to the GCP guidelines, like methodology can be designed according to the objective and everything can be followed.
Right. I guess I try to pick up some important questions here and try to address them. And if there are some more questions, we can then carry on in that GCP group and address those. Thank you very much, Dr. Imam, Madam, for the wonderful presentation as well as the interaction after this presentation. And
Thank you, Avinash, sir.
yeah, and now it's over to the organizers. Dr. Ganesh, sir, please.
Yes, sir. Regarding first question, whether a PG or UG can act as a principal investigator, as the Rima madam has said that principal investigator should have training, education as well as experience. So if that postgraduate student is having training as well as experience, then he can act as a principal investigator. Otherwise, routinely he can act as a co-investigator and his guide
Yes.
can act as a principal investigator.
Yes.
So now we are marching towards the end of the today's session. I am very thankful to all office bearers of NPT for allowing us to conduct this workshop, as well as both the speakers, Dr. Mrunalini Kalkar madam and Dr. Rima Shah madam, for their excellent presentation, as well as moderators, Dr. Jacob sir and my friend Dr. Turankar sir. Lastly, my sincere thanks to all participants for their active participation and patience hearing. If there are any queries as mentioned by Dr. Turankar sir, you can have in the WhatsApp group and the respective speakers can answer that queries. So with this, I declare that today's session is over and we will meet again on 14th March at 3 p.m. Thank you all.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You can go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much to all the resource persons, and it is really a proud to have our speakers and moderators of such a repute at National Association of Pharmacology and Therapeutics. I would like to convey my sincere gratitude from National Association of Pharmacology and Therapeutics to all the participants who has made this GCP a record-breaking event. And there might be some difficulties due to the logistic and due to technical problems. I hope you will bear with us. In next session, we will be trying to improve it. And many of the participants, they are requested to stay in touch through email or through WhatsApp group. and try to join all these sessions. 75% attendance we have made mandatory. We are sincerely thankful to all for making this a grand success. I can see still that more than 1,000 participants have joined this session. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. We can leave now.